Shay Given is going to be part of Amazon Prime's Premier League coverage of the match between Newcastle against Liverpool tomorrow night. And the former Newcastle goalkeeper Shay Given joins us live. Mr. Given, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where are you at, Shay, going into this one? Regards your beloved Newcastle United. You won 5 and 13, you sit 11th. That's not good enough in the eyes of many Newcastle United fans, is it?
Well, it isn't, Jim? I think if you look at the table, they're 4 points off the top four. So I suppose there've been a few blips along the way. The last time out at St James, of course, losing to home to West Ham on Monday Night Football, and it was a shock, I think, for most Newcastle fans, including myself, that they couldn't get the job done against West Ham. But the 2 games before that, both for Chelsea in the Cup and, of course, beating Arsenal 1-0 was brilliant results, So, again, I suppose it's consistency, Jim, getting consistency in the performances. And I suppose the one thing that has been lacking this year with Newcastle is goals. They haven't probably scored enough goals. And obviously, you know yourself, you don't score goals, you don't win games. So I think Isak maybe is a concern as well. Is he fit for the big game tomorrow night against Liverpool? He went off injured against Palace the other day, so it's a concern if he's going to be fit. They say it's a knock, but I'm not sure if he's going to be fit or not.
I think you're spot on, Shay. Scoring goals, that is the problem. Eddie Howe, for his part, says, I just don't get it.
Well, yeah, we're always asking the players to shoot. There's certainly no ban on shooting. Of course, it's got to be in the right areas. It's a difficult one because teams that I've managed have always, traditionally, I don't want to kill myself, but traditionally have scored goals. We've always been a very attacking front foot team, so nothing's changed in our preparation and that respect. We're just going through a phase, I think, at the moment where we're struggling, but I think we'll come out of that.
I mean, last season, Shay, only Manchester City scored more than the 85 that Newcastle scored. So something dramatically has gone wrong in that department.
Yeah. I mean, for whatever reason, it's not clicking in the forward areas. And Eddie's right. I think every team he's managed, they've always been on the front foot. They've always created chances and always scored goals. So whatever's gone wrong, it's not, the wheels haven't totally come off, Jim. It's just a matter of I think Isak particularly clicking. Obviously Barnes has clicked in with a few. Gordon's come in with a few goals and just getting goals from midfield as well, like the likes of Guimaraes and maybe Joe Linton, popping up with a few goals as well. But it's not all doom and gloom. That's for sure for Newcastle. I mean, it's a huge game against Liverpool. It always is. I mean, Liverpool are probably one of the hoodoo teams over the years. Even last year, Van Dijk was sent off. If you remember the game last season, and Newcastle were putting lots of pressure on Liverpool, couldn't get the job done. Darwin Núñez comes off the bench, scores 2 goals, and off they go with a 3-punch. It's a difficult game, especially where Liverpool are sitting in the league and how confident they're playing and how good a team that Arne Slot's sort of built. So it's a very difficult game for Newcastle.
Where'd you put it, Simon? I mean, you were up there recently and you were in conversation with Eddie.
Yeah.
He's well aware of it, but they don't have the problems to see.
Yeah, I've boxed him because he hasn't done anything since I saw him. I mean, they battered Nottingham Forest, who were the form team in the division, a couple of games ago. They've had 2 bad games. They've got a quarter-final of a cup competition coming up against Brentford. As Shay says, they're 4 points off the top 4 spots. Their performance on Saturday across the board was surprisingly poor. The end product. It's one thing getting into Isak for not scoring goals. It's another thing the supply, because I think the supply on Saturday was very poor in terms of, I thought Gordon didn't do a lot. Besides creating the goal, which Gary, ironically scores an own goal against a team that he might have signed for. I think Joe Linton was poor on Saturday. I think a lot of them were poor in an individual game. I don't think it defines them. They're 11th in the league. It's so bunched up. They win a game. I don't think they're going to beat Liverpool, but I think there's not a lot to be concerned about. 2 weeks ago, everyone was raving about Nottingham Forest. They went up to the City Ground and handed them their head.
But there were reports up in the North East over the weekend in some quarters that Newcastle United, they've hit a ceiling. You don't see that?
Well, they're going to hit a ceiling, same way Aston Villa have. Because unless you're going to be able to spend a lot more money, what is it Newcastle going to be able to realistically achieve season upon season? They cannot go toe-to-toe with the clubs that have got bigger turnovers, because they cannot build these turnovers, because they can't get the achievement, so they can't buy the players, and around we go. This is the conundrum that PSR was created.
How does that change, Simon? How does the clubs change that?
But it's unfair, Shay. I thought that PSR was brought in to stabilise football. It hasn't been brought in to stabilise football. It's been brought in to protect the clubs that are already there. So that means Newcastle, whether I like the ownership model or not, is going to find itself in a situation where it's going to take a hell of a long time to achieve what the owners could really want for it and have the resources to be able to build for it because they can't spend the dough. And quite frankly, I think Newcastle are doing moderately okay. They're not brilliant. I don't know what you think, Shay.
I look at the table as well, and you're right. You look at both Aston Villa and Newcastle, both my clubs used to play for, and they have got wealthy owners, but every time they open the door, it seems to be closed. Well, you can't do this, and they go a different angle, and you can't do that. And even looking at the table, when you look at Nottingham Forest, the season they're having, if you roll back a year, 18 months, they actually took the hit on the nose and go, do you know what, we're going to outspend the financial rules, and we're going to break the law and take a 3-point deduction or whatever. But we're going to bring these players, and is that the way these clubs might have to go? And say we'll take the deduction, but we'll get like
no, they won't
unbelievable players.
No, they won't because the point sanction is such a deterrent. The PSR rules need to change. But when you look at the table, Shay, do you think, without being disrespectful to these clubs, and put Brighton to one side because this is a unique model, Brighton, that's working so well for a variety of different reasons. When I look at the league table, I don't see Fulham, Brentford, and Nottingham Forest finishing in front of Newcastle.
No, I agree.
And then I look at the teams above them and go, well, okay then. If we take those three out and Newcastle are 7th, 8th in the league, who else should they be above? They shouldn't be above Liverpool. They shouldn't be above Arsenal. They shouldn't be above Chelsea. They shouldn't be above Man City, irrespective of Man City's funk right now. So really and truly, unless Newcastle are going to have the blinders taken off and be able to spend, what is it that they're going to be able to achieve?
No, it's a good point.
A League Cup final.
That's a good point. Do you sense a staleness amongst the Newcastle squad, Shay?
I don't think it's a staleness, but it's a frustration, Jim, for sure. Because when the new owners came in, there was real excitement in the city. You could see the celebrations on the streets. Yeah. They thought this was their time now to really kick on and be challenging at the very, very top, both in the Premier League and Champions League. And of course, they got the Champions League last season, and then they suffered in the Premier League, a bit like Aston Villa. They're in the Champions League this year. The Premier League suffering because their squads aren't big enough, aren't strong enough to compete on both fronts, and they've not been there for so long. So it's frustrating. I think Newcastle fans, it's the wealthiest club in the world, but it's no good if you can't spend the money.
Yeah, sure.
They'll have to live with the added benefit of it being ABA. Anybody but Ashley.
Manchester City.
Yeah, there's always that.
Shay, in the meantime, you're working on Newcastle against Liverpool tomorrow night. At the same time, 7:30 kickoff, Man City going against Forest. That's a real test for Forest. Let's see what they really are made of. But we saw what happened at the weekend, of course, when they played Liverpool, Manchester City, and Edison was nowhere to be seen. Did that surprise you that Pep decided to exclude him?
Yeah, I mean, I covered the Champions League game last week, and he didn't have a great game, if I'm being honest. I think the second goal, he probably shouldn't have debated his near post, and then the ball over the top was a misjudgment. He read it wrong, and the guy nipped in front of him, and they scored from that as well. So, but for me, it was a collector's item. Ederson, since he joined Manchester City, he's been a phenomenal goalkeeper. He's been absolutely brilliant, and I felt it was extremely harsh. Now, Ortega's a great goalkeeper in his own right as well, but we all have bad days at the office. We all have poor games. We all make mistakes. And I think what Ederson's done for that football club, I felt it was a bit harsh. But then you look at the bigger picture, maybe in a sense, how bad a run Man City have been on. And Pep's thinking, I need to do something. Goals, we're conceding too many goals. Maybe a mix-up at the goalkeeper at the back. Maybe I have to just make a drastic decision like that. I don't think it was the right decision because I think Ederson's done enough. But again, I think it showed against Liverpool how far they've fallen off the sort of Richter scale. That they were so poor against Liverpool. Liverpool were miles ahead of them, and we've never seen the likes of Pep Guardiola's side do this in the past. We've never talked about a lack of confidence, or a lack of belief with the ball, without the ball, all these different things, Jim. Yeah. We've never seen it before. But I suppose Pep has come out fighting. He held his 6 fingers up to say, 6 Premier League titles, and he's also said, I'm here to fight to get us out of this position, which is quite refreshing because we always see Pep at the top of the league, it seems, with a cigar on. Now we'll see Pep Guardiola in a different sort of light and say, well, can he turn this ship around and can he get back up to the top of the league?
We'll see. Shay, thank you very much indeed. Shay, of course, part of Amazon Prime's Premier League coverage tomorrow night. Newcastle against Liverpool. That means Shay goes back to where he is immensely popular at St James's Park. Ticket prices, we'll look at that very shortly.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.